Hello F1 fans and welcome back to the F1 Masters podcast brought to you by AUBG Daily. As usual, here with myself, David and Vasco, and in this episode we're going to talk about the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend. And we can start off with practice.
Yeah, in practice we had some surprises. For example, Pierre Gasly was P1 in one of the practice sessions. We saw some good pace from Williams, not so good pace from Red Bull, including a crash from Yuki Tsunoda at the final corner, just turned in a little too early. But that's nothing new for Red Bull, crashing at that corner. We had Gabriel Bortoleto also not participating in FP2 due to some issues with his car. And McLaren had huge pace in FP3. They were 0.6 clear of the closest car, so it was looking like going into qualifying they would dominate.
And about Gasly has been on a pretty hot streak lately, and it was pretty sad to see what happened with him in the race, but we'll talk about that later. Going to qualifying, once Stroll was knocked out. He was 16, more than 0.1 seconds, I think, from... Who was the next driver? I think it was one of the Haas drivers.
Yeah, I think it was Ollie Behrman.
Yeah, I think it was Ollie Behrman too. And he's currently the record holder for most Q1 exits with 75, knocking down Kevin Magnussen, who has 74. And Ollie Behrman, he went to Q2 for the first time, I think, since their teammates Liam Lawson out-qualified Isaac Hadjar, but definitely the highlight of the qualifying session was probably the most favored driver to get the pole position before the race, Lando Norris, who crashed and had to start from 10th.
Yeah, and Carlos Sainz also impressed in qualifying. He was P6, which, I mean, he out-qualified Albon by a lot because Albon was knocked out in Q2. So really impressive from Carlos Sainz.
He out-qualified Lewis Hamilton as well.
Yeah, also Yuki Tsunoda was in the top 9 for the first time in qualifying. He was P8.
Well, better late than never, I guess.
Yeah, and Charles Leclerc was P4, which was probably the maximum he could have taken in this qualifying. And in the top 3, we had a really close fight between Verstappen, Piastri, and Russell. All of them were like really fast, and I think Russell set his lap time first and then the others. But Verstappen was on pole by only 0.01 seconds. It was incredibly close. It was just a joy to watch, I think, for F1 fans.
He received a toll from Yuki Tsunoda, but also his first sector was amazing, was mesmerizing, and the late push at the end of his lap, that made him like pole-sitter. It was pretty impressive because we all know so far in the season that this Red Bull car doesn't really have the pace, but still looking at how Verstappen manages to extract everything from that car, I think it is pretty impressive.
And yeah, we can move on to the race, and we'll start off with our podium finishers. So the race winner was Oscar Piastri, beating Max Verstappen in second place, and Charles Leclerc getting on the podium for the first time this season for Ferrari, actually. So yeah, it was there was definitely some events during the race, and we can start off with one of the most talked about moments from the race, and that was the race start, and Piastri just getting a fantastic start, getting alongside Verstappen, going into turn 1, they're side by side, and then Verstappen decides to go off track and cuts the corner, turn 2, to keep the position, and as a result got a 5-second penalty. So yeah, on this incident it was very talked about, and Verstappen was obviously not happy with the penalty whatsoever. But how did you guys see the incident?
Well, Verstappen, he didn't have anywhere else to go because the first corner is really narrow. But at the same time, Piastri had better start. So I think the penalty is totally justified. But at the same time, like, what can Verstappen do? If he slows down and decides not to cut the corner but take the turn after Piastri, he risks of crashing with another driver or just losing positions because of this. So I think that this race, even if you're the pole sitter, you're not like on the best place on the grid, and with such narrow first turn, I just think that if you want to have maximum performance, you either crash or hope your car is like insanely fast.
Yeah, I just I think Verstappen, he should have just let the position back through because Antonelli also cut the corner and he let Charles Leclerc back through. So I think
Alonso did the same later in the race. I think.
yeah, I mean, I don't know why Verstappen did it. I guess he really thought that he got to the apex first, which I had a real issue with this because, in my opinion, Verstappen does not at all try to make the corner. He brakes extremely late just so that he can say he is at the apex before Piastri, which this is not the right way to approach the situation, in my opinion. And 5-second penalty. I even saw that the stewards were apparently going to give him 10 seconds, but because it's on lap 1, they decided to give it just 5 seconds. And I think it was a fair penalty, 5 seconds. I would say it's not a lot. It actually pretty much decided the race because Verstappen finished 3 seconds behind Oscar.
Definitely, but again, this is because both Piastri and Verstappen, I think in this race, they were flawless. Like throughout the whole race, when we exclude the first lap, after that, both of them, they were pretty fast. They were sitting pretty well on the grid. So these 5 seconds were crucial. But other two drivers that didn't have that luck were Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, who crashed on the first lap. And it was it was race incident, but it was pretty tough to watch it because they both had, let's call it a fine qualifying session. Pierre Gasly was 9th, Yuki Tsunoda was 8th. And I was thinking that they were both capable of getting at least a few points. And their race essentially ended in one corner, which is sad to see for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was the definition of a racing incident. No penalties were given and it was fair. Actually, the FIA, I think, actually did a good job this race, also considering the Verstappen penalty. And yeah, after that, there was a safety car. I think like 3 drivers pitted. I think they were in the bottom of the field, like Bortoleto, Duan.
So was it Hülkenberg or somebody?
Yeah. Nothing interesting.
Nothing spectacular. They were once again, by the way, Sauber, they're nowhere to be seen, which is yet another concerning week for them. And for Bortoleto, I hope to see throughout this season something. Even if Sauber had a pretty bad car, I expected to see some George Russell's type of performance when he was first year.
And things like this.
Yeah, and going like gravitating around 12th, 13th, something like that, because probably we can compare that Sauber car with that Williams car from a few years ago. Even I think that Sauber car is a bit better, but still Bortoleto, I hope he improves throughout the season, but as it stands now, like things are not looking good both for him and for Sauber.
Yeah, considering that both of us named him as our like potential rookie of the year. This was our prediction. I mean, let's see if he delivers.
Very impressive from us
so
far.
Yeah, for now David is doing well with Kimi Antonelli as his prediction. So let's see.
Going to another driver who was not impressive in the qualifying session, but after that actually had a pretty good race. Actually, I think Lando Norris, who was pretty steady to climb up the field, and in the end he was 4th, which is alright. I guess like the ceiling for this race, at least before the race weekend, for me was 1st or 2nd place for him, but after the crash, 4th place, not the best, but at the same time I think it is pretty respectable.
Yeah, I think he tried his best. He was close to a podium as well, but he didn't manage. I think at the end of the race, he finished around
1 second behind.
1 second behind
it was
Charles.
Even like if there were 2 or 3 more laps, he may have called Charles.
Yeah.
But I think Charles, just his tire work and his strategy in the race and the execution of this strategy, he deserved being on the podium.
And I also think he deserved to be named driver of the day, but somehow it was Verstappen. I don't know, it's very random this year with driver of the day. But I want to focus more on the battle between Norris and Hamilton, because Lando decided to overtake in the last corner instead of waiting for turn 1, which is more logical because he will have the DRS as well, and he did it twice. Okay, I mean, he could have done it once. He should have seen that it doesn't work out, and then the next lap he could have tried it in turn 1. But no, he was stubborn and he decided to do it twice. It didn't make sense for me. I mean, I don't know why.
Maybe he didn't expect Lewis to fight it, and I mean, credit to Lewis for fighting it and actually holding up Lando, because this was the difference for Lando not catching catching up to Charles at the end of the race. Yeah, Norris, I don't know, not the smartest of driving, but I never really considered him as one of the smartest drivers on the grid. I would say the other championship contenders are, I think, much more aware of the situation and what's going on in comparison to him. So yeah, that was a bit weird from Norris, but I mean, as Vasco said, he did a good race, and P4, I think P3 was the maximum, obviously, but Charles Leclerc was great. Like, in that first stint, he extended for 10 laps and his pace didn't drop. Like, Norris, who was behind him, was not catching up actually at all. And on those fresher tires, absolutely breezed by George Russell, and yeah, went on to not only finish on the podium, but he finished like just 5 seconds behind Verstappen. Very strong pace actually from Charles Leclerc. I think this is a sign that Ferrari are gonna start creeping into the fights more often.
To start creeping into the fights, however, they need a second driver who is competitive and capable of extracting the maximum of the car. And sadly for Sir Lewis Hamilton, so far it's not looking great for him. And I know that we discuss that every week after every race, but I don't think it is either that he needs more races to get used to the car, or the thing is that just the rest of the teams are better than Ferrari and his teammate is also better than him, which puts him in a really bad situation right now, I think.
I don't know why he's so bad. I mean, I thought that, at the end of last year was like a Mercedes thing, like he wasn't really gelling with the team anymore. But this year, Leclerc beats him pretty much every time, apart from that sprint race in China, which seems like an anomaly, which I still can't believe now, looking back, that Lewis Hamilton qualified and finished a race in first place with Ferrari. His pace has been dreadful in qualifying, especially. I don't know, I just don't think he's at his best anymore, and he's 40 years old.
Yeah, he's 40, so it shouldn't come as a surprise. I think that all of us we're suffering from, let's call it, the Fernando Alonso hangover, thinking that despite Lewis being one of the best, being top 2 drivers of all time probably, still I think that not every driver can be like 40, 41, 42 and still perform miracles. And this is like, I think Lewis is still quite capable of doing some great things, but if we want to see the 30-year-old Lewis Hamilton, then I have bad news for all Ferrari fans.
I mean, I don't even expect anything crazy from him, but I thought he should have beat Kimi Antonelli in that race, and he was faster than him. He was 2 seconds behind, and then all of a sudden, like, he just drops off for no reason, and I was so confused about that. I mean, seeing his teammate the pace he had, I don't know why he doesn't have more confidence in the car. He just needs to, drive more aggressively. I don't really know what else. He should do better, and I think once we get into the European leg, the more traditional tracks, I think that's really where he is at his best, and he's shown it in the last few years with Mercedes as well, even through bad seasons. But yeah, we can move on to also another incident, Gabriel Bortoleto and Fernando Alonso. Oh my god, that could have been such a disaster. Incredibly lucky, both of them, for somehow not getting any damage. Bortoleto almost put Alonso in the wall pretty much, but very close incident. And I mean, it wouldn't have really mattered. Both these guys finished outside the points, but maybe could have brought out a safety car and turned the race on its head once again.
Yeah, Bortoleto was quite aggressive. Like, he swerved into the braking zone. I don't know what he was thinking. But
I don't think he knew Alonso was behind him.
Yeah.
That's how it looked in my opinion, because he just got overtaken by someone else. And yeah.
Speaking of overtakes, we saw probably, I don't know, the overtake of the season, or at least when I saw it on camera first, it was so impressive from Oscar Piastri, who did like NASCAR-like overtake really close to the wall in front of Lewis Hamilton, and that overtake granted him a really great advantage time-wise against Verstappen. And if it was not for the 5-second penalty, I think that would have been like a very crucial moment in the race, because that was the moment when Oscar was like, okay, now I have the advantage, I just have to be calm. And till the end of the race, he was pretty calm, and nothing actually stopped him. Even for a second, it wasn't looking like Verstappen can catch him.
I absolutely agree that overtake was phenomenal. And Oscar feels like he has the two best overtakes, and they were both on Hamilton. In Australia, he also had a phenomenal overtake on Lewis Hamilton, so Lewis needs to stay away from Oscar. But I think that overtake also really showed the difference between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris's mindset, because Lando Norris struggled to overtake Lewis Hamilton with DRS for a few laps. Oscar Piastri gets right onto the back of him, instantly goes for the overtake at the most random places. Well, like, I've never seen an overtake into that corner in my life, and that overtake was absolutely sensational. And I think it shows the mindset that Piastri has, and I think he is ready to go for this championship. And he took the lead of the championship, and we can talk about the championship now as well.
Also, I just want to mention Oscar Piastri and what happened with his career in general, because he probably should have been at Alpine, and I think if he was at Alpine, it would have been a really, really great loss to the sport. Because as of now, last season, it was, let's say, the season where Oscar Piastri was getting attached to a fast car. He had more experienced teammate. I think this season, Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen, but Oscar Piastri especially, is super impressive in that car, and it is visible from these first few races of the season that Oscar Piastri is championship worthy candidate. And not only like one season, I think he can be one of the best drivers in the years to come.
Yeah, I agree, because I also see that he's hungry to prove himself. He's very aggressive, like as we saw this overtake is a proof of that. He's mature, like for his age. Unlike Lando Norris, he's not that emotionally unstable, so that's really gonna help him.
We can all agree that Oscar Piastri is a phenomenal talent, but he had a 1 year gap between 21 and 23 when he first entered the sport, which I think is a bit concerning for the whole sport. I think that you have the best talents, and somehow even one of the best talents cannot be directly integrated into the sport. And we've been talking about this for a few years now, and I hope that this changes. I don't know, they cannot implement a rule where the driver that wins F2 should definitely be in F1, but I think that teams should find a way to integrate the best drivers. Not people because we've seen people like Guan Yu Zhou, Mazepin, Latifi, they received an F1 seat, and people like Oscar Piastri had to wait a whole year, which is a bit concerning.
Yeah, that's really the nature of Formula 1. I would dream for F2 champion automatically gets into F1, but you can't force a team to sign any driver. And for example, Felipe Drogovic, Theo Porcher, these guys never even got to F1, and they never will.
Probably, if they're not randomly substitute drivers for one weekend, I don't think they would ever competitively race in F1, which is sad because we've seen the potential in them too. I remember 3-4 years ago, talks around Theo Porcher, he was not the next big thing, but he was pretty damn fast, and people were talking about him.
Yeah, the hype was really there. It was similar to, I don't know, let's say Kimi Antonelli's hype, maybe the scale of it.
Yeah, I don't know. He reminded me a lot of Charles Leclerc. He was actually a Sauber Academy driver, which is quite crazy, but very good Theo Porcher, and sadly that he never got to F1. But yeah, we can move on to the championship standings. As already mentioned, Oscar Piastri took the lead of the championship. He's on 99 points right now. Lando Norris on 89, Max Verstappen on 87, and George Russell on 73. Falling back a little bit, but still well and truly in the hunt. Of course, it's only round 5, so it's fairly early on. And also in the team standings, McLaren comfortably ahead, 188. Mercedes on 111. Red Bull and Ferrari close to each other now, 89 and 78, but that's really the difference of two drivers, I guess, because Ferrari have been miserable and they're still somehow very close to Red Bull. I think they'll overtake them fairly soon, actually, because Yuki Tsunoda would need to step up for that to happen.
I think Yuki Tsunoda actually has been improving in that Red Bull, and I think at one point of the season, if Red Bull and Ferrari, if they keep the same pace, I think that actually we can see two separate battles. The first one between Lewis Hamilton and Yuki Tsunoda at some point of the season for that P7 spot, let's say. And I'm not sure, because I think Verstappen is a better driver than Leclerc and is very well adapted to the car. And I think that Verstappen is going to beat Leclerc throughout the whole season, but also if Yuki Tsunoda manages to like fight against Hamilton and occasionally here and there take his spot, take more points than him, then I think Red Bull can be in front of Ferrari. But it is up to Yuki Tsunoda now for the constructors, because Max, even though he's amazing, he cannot carry a whole team on his back.
And I also want to mention that Williams are now best of the rest. I think it's their best start to a season since 2016, so really impressive from the team. Double points this weekend, and I think they're going in an upward trajectory. Yeah, the team is improving throughout the last few seasons.
Hope that we can see that from them from 26 onwards too, because Williams historically one of the biggest teams in F1, and it was pretty pathetic to look at them in the Kubica-Russell times, and after that with Latifi too, and
Logan Sargent.
Yeah, Logan Sargent. Change my mind. Logan Sargent is probably like top 3 most forgettable F1 drivers ever, probably. And I even forgot about him. I was like, I know the name, I cannot even visualize like his face. Probably he was AI generated, I don't know.
But Williams, Carlos Sainz was very good this weekend and finally on pace with the car, it feels like. I think he's gotten the hang of it, him and Alex Albon. Very good, and I think they should comfortably actually finish 5th, even though they just got up to 5th. Haas, they had some lucky results to get to 5th, but on pace, Williams, I think, should definitely finish 5th.
And talking about Williams, let's reverse things a bit and start from our predictions, and after that go to our fun rubric, because for predictions I have Alex Albon going in the top 6 for the next race in Miami, which I think would be, I don't like Miami, I don't like sprint races, I feel like the race would be boring, won't be interesting and all that stuff, but I just hope that we see something different, and that is why I say Alex Albon top 6. Would it be the first time a non-top 4 team would crack into top 6? Or did it this season?
No, because of Australia. Alex Albon finished 5th in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
The Ferraris had a disaster, so people got into the top 6, so yeah.
Yeah, but so second appearance in top 6 for Alex Albon, which I think would be quite impressive. And also, we continue the trajectory with non-McLaren wins. I also predict that George Russell would win that race. I'm totally not sure about that, but I think at some moment of the season, George Russell would take at least 1 or 2 wins, and why not the first one to be in Miami? That would spice up the championship pretty good, I think. And my 2 predictions from the last week were no McLaren pole position, which was pretty close, but I think destiny just gave it back to me because of Yuki Tsunoda in his 10th place. So Max Verstappen took the pole position, which makes my prediction correct, and I expected at least 4 DNFs if Fernando Alonso and Gabriel Bortoleto were to, like, I don't know, crash in each other, then that prediction would have been correct, but only Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly were out at the end of the race, so this prediction is wrong.
Well, since we're on predictions, I will go through mine. First, for Miami, I think that Yuki Tsunoda will be within 0.3 of Max Verstappen in qualifying. Maybe it's bold, but I see the progress in Yuki, and I think this is a track that he's actually quite good at. And since it's a sprint weekend, I'll say this is for main qualifying. So if it's for sprint qualifying, it will not count. And watch him be 2 tenths behind in sprint qualifying, but in main qualifying, he'll be 4 tenths behind. But anyways, my other prediction, Fernando Alonso points, please, finally. I don't know how Fernando Alonso's still on 0 points, but it's time to end that streak, hopefully in Miami. My predictions for Saudi, I was 2 for 2, actually. I don't remember if I've even ever done this, but I had a new driver on the podium. That was Charles Leclerc. Very close to not happening, actually, but drove a fantastic race, totally deserved that podium. And new championship leader, Oscar Piastri, took the lead of the championship thanks to Lando Norris's bottle job once again.
All right, my predictions now. And my first one is a non-McLaren sprint win, which we saw in China. And I guess I just want it to happen again. Maybe it will be someone else. Maybe, I don't know, Charles Leclerc, George Russell. Let's see.
Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want it to be Max, but still it's gonna count, so let's see. And the second one is a double RB points, which is a bold one, because Liam Lawson, I mean, he hasn't got points this season yet, so it's gonna be interesting. But Isaac Hadjar, by the way, shout out, he got 10th place in Saudi, so
Very respectable season for Isaac Hadjar. I owe him an apology.
And my two predictions for Saudi were horrible. Mercedes podium. This was not their weekend, so I wasn't that close. And winning margin over 20 seconds. I mean, on this track, how could I even predict that, honestly?
I mean, there was actually, like, apart from the start, there was actually no safety cars, but the field was just pretty close, like, on pace.
Yeah.
The top four, I think, were all within 10 seconds. But we can now, since we've done it in reverse order, we can move on to our surprise and disappointment of the weekend. I'll start. My surprise, Isaac Hadjar. I know he only got 1 point, but RB looked nowhere the whole weekend. And even in qualifying, Hadjar was 14th. But good strategy and good pace, and honestly could have overtaken both the Williams. I think it was just really tough for him because Alex Albon had DRS and Carlos Sainz the whole time. We know Carlos Sainz amassed at keeping people at the perfect distance behind him, such as in Singapore, for example. So it was tough for Isaac Hadjar, but I was super surprised that he got into the points in the first place. Disappointment, Lewis Hamilton, you gotta do better. I mean, you should have beaten Kimi Antonelli at the bare minimum. Even if you're not on pace with Charles Leclerc, you can beat one of the Mercedes at least. I mean, you can just do better, like better qualifying, better race pace, better tire management. Everything needs to be better.
And before I say my surprises and disappointments of the weekend, just also on my previous prediction about the top 6, Lance Stroll actually took P6 in Australia too, which is just a shout out to the GOAT. I forgot about him.
Also, he has had 3 absolutely horrible races after those first 2 incredible races, and there's no explanation for it. I have no idea
It's
why.
just what he do. Like, he has been in the sport for close to 10 years now, and
He's breaking records out here.
Yeah, definitely. But he has, like, for the whole season, he can be dreadful. And at the same time, like, my highlight of his career, I won't remember a single bad race of Lance Stroll. But I would remember pole position in Turkey and his race when he was still at Williams in Baku, I think. When he was P2, I think.
P3, the photo finish with Bottas.
Yeah. But it is just that when I remember Lance Stroll, I would remember him for these 2 races and for Daddy's Cash. But I don't know, he's part of F1's folklore by now, I think. But for my surprises and disappointments, my surprise was double Williams points, but I guess we should get accustomed to it because Williams seem to be improving, and I think that we would see them in the points more often than not till the end of the season. And my disappointment, I would have said Lewis Hamilton, but I think Lando Norris's crash in quali, it was very disappointing. Both for the team, yes, but still I think McLaren are comfortably winning the championship. But for his mentality and for his championship dreams, it is really early in the season. But when you have the competition of Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, when you have the opportunity, you have to grab it. And Lando Norris, so far, it seems like he's more prone to mistakes than actually like locking in and being like, yes, this is my season, because so far this is his best opportunity for winning an F1 championship. And as it stands now, Oscar Piastri looks like the better prepared driver for that.
My surprise and disappointment of the weekend are Carlos Sainz, who has proven to be the master of DRS trains, and Lewis Hamilton, who has had a lot of critics as of recently, and he needs to make them shut up somehow, because he's not performing well.
And imagine now Lewis winning in Miami both the sprints and like being on pole position and being like, for all the haters out there, especially like post-race interview, especially for Harry Dikoff.
Will Smith gives him the trophy for the winner. It would just be perfect. But now, to round off the episode,
Absolute cinema.
we will discuss our highlights of the weekend. And I will start. Charles Leclerc masterclass weekend. I've already said it enough, but great driving, and the championship battle begins.
Yes, next year probably. For me, the highlight of the weekend was Max Verstappen's pole position. After that, it was pretty tough for him to receive that 5-second penalty, but his qualifying pace, even in that dreadful car, seems amazing, and this guy just never fails to amaze me.
Speaking of amazement, Oscar Piastri's overtake on Lewis Hamilton, this is what amazed me this weekend, and I think it will be one to remember. It will be part of the best overtakes in history compilations in the future. I mean, it was really impressive. I don't know if I'm overhyping it, but still, I think for me...
The camera work was great. I think it made it look even better. But yeah, as I said earlier, such a random place to make an overtake, and those are the overtakes that I think we live for. But yeah, this is all for today from us. We're looking forward to the next episode. Till then, like, subscribe, and follow us in AUBG Daily on Instagram and Facebook, and stay tuned for more of our content. Thank you, and remember,
if you no longer go for a gap that exists,
you're no longer a racing driver.